Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 presented by Stakes. We are getting into power rankings heading into week 4. Blake, we always start at the bottom. We have debated a change at the bottom for a couple of weeks, and now it's here. Missouri, now 14, Vandy 13. I'm not going to say two programs going in opposite directions because that wouldn't be fair. But Vandy got a big morale-boosting win this weekend, while Missouri just looked very pedestrian against Abilene Christian. And so we have made that change there.
Yeah, as always, these are our staff composite rankings, not just Chris and I. Comprises all of our staff, Southeastern 14. And so the different rankings put together, not surprised to see this, although I will point out I don't think that gap is still that big between Vanderbilt and
No.
Missouri. I think there's still probably they're the clear two right now in those two spots. Maybe you could debate a couple of these other teams we're going to talk about in a second. But yeah, not surprised to see the switch, just given Vanderbilt winning, but also making the quarterback change. A little more optimism there, I think, with AJ Swan. So,
Okay, I think this has been the one constant in our poll. I think we've had South Carolina at 12 in every one of these. The Gamecocks haven't looked too good so far. The Gamecocks have also probably played the toughest slate in the league. So Carolina at 12, we will see if the Gamecocks move up or move down in coming weeks.
as I said, Georgia doing to South Carolina is going to be something Georgia's going to do to not just South Carolina. And I don't know how much we read off of that for South Carolina, but still, I think that they are. I've moved them up ahead of the spot before. I don't think I did it this week. I think I put the next team we're going to talk about in front of them. But yeah, I think South Carolina is still a team, as we mentioned, was going to be a work in progress, the offense. But, I don't know how much you take away from Georgia doing what Georgia does. And so, yeah, South Carolina spot right here for a while. So.
Auburn at 11, we have had various opinions on Auburn. Our fear was that the quarterback play would sort of be Auburn's undoing, although Auburn did gain some yards against Penn State. The defense fell apart. Auburn at 11, and frankly, hard to justify going much higher with the Tigers at this point.
Well, that's my thing. It's like I don't even know what that clear separation is between an Auburn and a South Carolina right now, to be honest with you. Like I think it's one of those things where I don't know, I wouldn't be shocked if somebody put them in the different order just based on what they've seen. But like we said, I think, for Auburn, a lot of those things for us stood out not in the Penn State game. They stood out in the San Jose State game. And then to kind of carry that over to where, things were with the Penn State game and how that played out, very disappointing, I think, for sure. And like you said, I think offense is something that we will just see how they look. But I mean, again, you also give up 41 points against Penn State. So there are a lot of things that have to be figured out, Chris. And as we're going to talk about coming up this week, a very important game, Auburn and Missouri. So a big game for both teams. So.
Now we get to the point where it gets really hard to sort out because some of these teams have done some good things one week and some not so good things the next week. You try not to get too influenced by recency bias, but here is where we went with the next few spots. We went Florida 10, Mississippi State 9, A&M 8, and LSU 7.
I mean, that's probably what I would have expected, right? Because I think LSU is going to get the boost from winning. Because, they beat Mississippi State. So I think I'm not surprised that other people would move them up to where this is our composite, having them at 7. I'm not surprised by that. Because realistically, Chris, it's like, I guess the debate in that one would be, do you put LSU above A&M? I think that's probably the only question because otherwise, Mississippi State's dropping because they lost. Florida, as we said, it didn't feel like a loss against South Florida, but like we've talked about in our reaction video we did on Sunday night, it just don't feel like that game should have been that close. And so I'm not surprised to see Florida down here. And as we know, some of us have been higher and lower on Florida to this point than others. But yeah, I mean, it's just from what you've seen from Florida the past couple of weeks, I'm not surprised to see them at the bottom of this group of 4 here. Mississippi State, I think it's still hard to know kind of where they're gonna. You and I, as we talked about, we've been the high people on Mississippi State, and they drop here several spots just because they lost, right? I don't know that they're dropping because
Well,
we're
it
overly
and not just that, but who they lost to. You
right.
like, I
Yeah.
think it's kind of unfair to State because I think State's probably better than this, but, like, you
Right.
can't put them
Yeah.
behind
Yeah.
LSU. Then, well, LSU's lost to Florida State, so what do you do with them? So
Yeah.
State's kind of in that sticky spot for the time being.
And A&M at 8, I mean, I said it. Like I think we learned something about A&M against Miami, but I still don't think we learned a lot necessarily just because, they were playing without some key players. I think the offense is clearly still something that they're going to have to evolve moving forward, but defensively, that's where they're going to have their strength there. And to this point, that has been their strength. And obviously, they'll get challenged this upcoming week against Arkansas. So, yeah, very, very interesting order there. But no doubt, LSU easily one of the biggest winners of the week in terms of our power rankings just by what they did against Mississippi State.
Yeah, to recap those four again, that was Florida 10, State 9, A&M 8, and LSU 7. Okay, football season is underway. The best place to make your predictions without risking bankroll is Stakes. You can predict anything in the game. Take your game time excitement to the next level when you compete with your friends and other fans on the Stakes app. During weekly competitions, you can build your track record by winning competitions and earning NFT trophies for making the perfect calls. Go to playwithstakes.com/14. Sign up, use the invite code Southeastern14 for a double welcome bonus. Again, all free, lots of fun, costs you nothing. You can win stuff. What's the downside to that? Okay, kicking on the top half, we've got Ole Miss at 6, Kentucky at 5. I thought Kentucky might move up. With Ole Miss, we're impressed with what we've seen, but we need to see the Rebels play better teams. Those next three teams are highly debatable. After that, again, I think I might even could argue Kentucky is 3. We had them at 5. It was very close in the voting here. So anyway, both these teams have got very, very winnable games this week that I don't know will tell us much about either.
Yeah, I mentioned I know Georgia Tech's bad, but I did feel like I learned something about Ole Miss just to go on the road and dominate the way you should dominate. I always say I think that can tell you as much about a team as anything. That they could just go out and I mean, look on the flip side, right? You talk about a Florida against a team like South Florida. I think you kind of it's different scenario, but I think those are some of the things to me you can quantify and say, all right, Ole Miss should have beat Georgia Tech the way they beat Georgia Tech, and there was
Mm-hmm.
no there was no hesitation. There was no, struggles. It was just they came out and took care of business, and that's what you want to see. And so, yeah, I definitely moved Ole Miss up this week, just based off of that. Again, a bad team, but I think you can see quality, when it's there. And I think for sure Ole Miss is starting to they're hitting their stride early on. But as we said, the schedule's a big part of that. Kentucky at 5. Here's the problem, and it's not our thing is usually look unless we have really a reason to drop a team, which is a lot of that would be a loss. You just kind of keep them where they are. And I think that's for me is kind of what happened here with Kentucky because everyone knows by now we've done our power rankings. I've had Tennessee in front of Kentucky the entire season. I've really had no reason to change my mind on that. Even though, as we said, Kentucky got a big win at Florida, but now you kind of see where Florida's at. And that's not, again, I think these are clearly the top 5 teams, in my opinion, in terms of where we have them
Yeah.
at. I think there will be people that will have a different order. Again, some people have Kentucky ahead of Tennessee. Some people have, as you mentioned, Chris, could have Kentucky as high as 3. But I think you could also make that case for the next 2 teams we're going to talk about outside of, I think, the obvious top 2. So,
I would say a clear top 6, including Ole Miss. But
yeah,
again, I
yeah,
haven't
I think
played
so.
anybody. But
Right.
okay, 4, 3, 2, 1 in this order: Tennessee 4, Arkansas 3, Bama 2, Georgia 1. I think you could make a pretty strong debate to flip Tennessee and Arkansas. In fact, I did in mine, but it's all going to play out in time.
Yeah, I left mine the same. I left my exactly, I guess what it is. Mine was Georgia, Alabama, Arkansas, Tennessee. Um, yeah, again, as we said, we're still what this is our week 4 power ranking. So we've had a quarter of a season to this point, and we know just with how schedules are. Some team schedules have been completely different than others, right? I mean, like look at Arkansas' schedule. I think to this
Mm.
point and what they've done. Um, versus the Tennessee. And again, I'm not knocking Tennessee. I've been the high man on them. I guess you are now. You moved them up, right? So I think it's, I know they, but again, it goes back to my point about Ole Miss, right? Like Tennessee has done to Ball State and Akron what they should have done to Ball State and Akron, and I think
Hmm.
that's what impresses me there. So, yeah, I mean, the highest scoring offense in the league. I think Tennessee. That's just going to be something that they can use their advantage here. Arkansas at 3. I'll be honest, I never really considered dropping them. I mean, they still won by 11 against Missouri State. I know it was a struggle there for a while, but a win's a win. They still won by double digits. Georgia, the only choice for the number one spot based on what they did to South Carolina. I mean, it's just, as I said, they have been absolutely dominant to this point. And yeah, I think there is a very clear separation there in terms of what Georgia's done to this point. And again, it's not to knock Alabama. I mean, Alabama took care of business against Louisiana Monroe as they should have, but what Georgia's doing right now has just been remarkable. So yeah, they to me are the clear number one to this point.
Yeah, I think this Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas tier will.
Yeah.
Well, I say that. I don't know that it'll start to separate. I think all of them are good teams are going to win a lot of games.
I
So
mean, it's a big week
I
for
think
that though, right?
it is. It's a
Yeah.
huge week.
Because Florida with
Um,
Tennessee and A&M with Arkansas. So like those are Arkansas
yeah,
and Tennessee win both those games. I mean, that's again, like you said, there's a little separation there if that happens. So yeah,
yeah. The health of Arkansas's defense is concerning me, but you know what? Tennessee's got some health issues on offense too that
yeah,
we will get to in our videos here shortly as we preview all SEC games or all games involving SEC teams for Week 4. Don't miss any of those. The way to do that, hit that subscribe button. Got plenty more content coming up. Got our usual Wednesday night live stream at 9 Eastern, 8 Central. So thank you for watching. The channel count for subscribers has grown quickly. We appreciate you guys for that. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.